So before we actually start this Football Manager 24 retro series looking at the Oxford side of nearly 40 years ago, I thought I'd better give you a bit of an introduction to the game and a brief history of Oxford United just before this actual save started, because there is basically a lot going on. Um, as you can see in my previous Championship Manager game series, Oxford were in a lot of financial trouble in the 90s, and it happened also in the early 1980s, where they were just a week away from being liquidated, which means they will cease to exist. So what you're going to hear next is the intro to the game and the series, and then you will see the game. It's 1982 and Oxford United were in the old third division, now League One, and they've had big money problems. In fact, they faced closure as they were unable to pay the debts they owed Barclays Bank. They were rescued though by a certain Robert Maxwell, a very rich media mogul and former MP, but also a controversial person. Also, earlier that year, former Birmingham City manager Jim Smith, known as the Bald Eagle due to his bald head, became Oxford United manager. Maxwell's reputation, meanwhile, didn't help that. Later, in April 1983, he proposed merging United with neighbours Reading and calling the side Thames Valley Royals, which would play in nearby Didcot, thus leaving Oxford. Both sets of supporters hated this idea and protested. Thankfully, the merger didn't happen. Under Smith's guidance, Oxford got promoted from the third division as champions in the 1983-84 season and promoted as champions again the following season in the old second division, which is now known as the Championship. That meant for the start of the 1985-86 season, the season before the save starts, Oxford would be in the first division for the first time. Smith, though, decided to leave the Oxford job after failed contract talks with Maxwell and became manager of Queen's Park Rangers. More about them later. And Oxford chief scout Maurice Evans took on the job as caretaker manager for the whole season. He didn't take on the job as full-time though. Oxford finished 18th that season under Evans, avoiding relegation on the final day by beating Arsenal 3-0. This season, though, would go down in Oxford's history when they won their first major trophy, the League Cup, or as it's known in 1986 as the Milk Cup, by beating, yes, you guessed it, Jim Smith's Queen's Park Rangers 3-0 in the final, with goals by Trevor Hebbard, Ray Houghton and Jeremy Charles. Oxford would have then qualified for next season's UEFA Cup had it not been for the ban of English clubs from the previous Heysel Stadium disaster of 1985. This season, John Aldridge finished top scorer for Oxford with 23 goals and was wanted by a number of clubs, including Liverpool. Veteran player Steve Perryman also joined from Tottenham Hotspur this season, which helped their survival. He would leave to take Brentford manager's job 2 years later. So, here we are at the start of the 1986-87 season, and in this alternative timeline, Maurice Evans has decided not to take on the job full time, and Maxwell has given the job and some extra cash as well to me. So before we start this Football Manager 2024 game save, where we take on the managership of Oxford United in 1986-1987, we'll just go back to the real timeline and just to tell you what actually happened in real life before I hopefully change the course of history and keep Oxford in the first division. Well, back in the real timeline, Oxford would struggle again to survive and just escape relegation, only to finish bottom in the 1987-88 season and leave top flight football not to, as yet, return again. Aldridge would score 15 goals that season, but would then leave to join Liverpool for £750,000, which is quite a lot of money in those days, remember? This nearly 40 years ago, to be replaced by Dean Saunders, who would later on join Liverpool in around 1991, and Martin Foyle. Dean Saunders came from Brighton and Martin Foyle came from Aldershot, who actually don't exist anymore. They are a Phoenix club, I think, now. Robert Maxwell himself resigned as chairman in May 1987 to be taken over by his son, Kevin. Maxwell Sr. would still own Oxford, though, for a couple of more years. Maxwell Sr. would go on and become Derby County chairman instead after leaving Oxford. Maurice Evans, who did take on the job full-time in 1986-87 after being caretaker for a year, would be sacked as Oxford boss in March 1988, to be taken over by former Liverpool player Mark Lawrenson. So a lot of Liverpool links to this save. The cup-winning side of 1986 would continue to break up, with captain Malcolm Shotton and playmaker Kevin Brock also leaving, joining Portsmouth and QPR. Jeremy Charles, one of the League Cup final goal scorers, would retire through injury, and later Ray Houghton would follow Aldridge and move to Liverpool for £825,000. So, in this alternative timeline, let's see if we can keep the players at Oxford and maybe bring some new talent in with the extra money Maxwell has given me. Welcome to the Oxford United 1986-87 retro save. And before we go to and see how we start this game, I have to say a big thanks to the Mad Scientist. He's a great Twitch streamer, and also he is on X Twitter. He gave me a lot of help in this save. He's the one that actually created this 1986-87 database. So big thanks to him as well. But anyway, let's go over to me and the game, and let's start this series. So we're just about to start the save, and the first thing you have to do when you get into FM24 is select the right database. Now, this database that the Mad Scientist has created can actually be available on Steam. If you just go into the Steam and the community, and then you head to, I'm just finding out myself, because obviously I've done this quite a while ago. You just type in 1986, 87, excuse me, database, or go under Football Manager 2024 Workshop, the Mad Scientist FM's Workshop, and that's where you will find it. And then when you have found it, you then load it into, you put it into the appropriate folder in your FM24. The Steam, where you find this on Steam, it tells you where you need to put it, gives you all the instructions in there, and then you click 1986-87 database, and then obviously you just click confirm, and then you just go back to normal, choose your game mode, the original game mode, go to advanced setup and let the database load up. This does take quite a while, so I'll skip this, and so the next thing you'll see is which leagues you need to load in. Now, this is the screen you should get after you have done the main game database. Now, on this database, there's only certain leagues you can actually play. Like the whole league structure of all the countries are involved, but a lot of the teams are not fully filled in by real players. They, except for certain divisions which are fully structured, full players. But if you go, for instance, down to Crew, for instance, who are in Division 2, Division 3, you only see one or two players, and then the rest are ghost players. But if you become manager of Liverpool, Arsenal, and Oxford, you'll get the full teams. So for the full teams only, for England, it's only the top two divisions. So, but I will do four divisions above. Take out the Australian team. Now this is the Italian leagues. Italian leagues is Serie A and B only, so you can keep it like that. The Scottish Premier Division are in this, so you click them. And then the Premier Division in Spain, La Liga is the top one, even though it's got Premier Division on here. Obviously, you put view only for all these, so your computer should be quite fast. I've got quite a modern PC anyway. And then the other nations you then add in, if you want to add them in, is Germany, Netherlands, France, and Portugal and Belgium. They're the other nations covered by this database, and I'll tell you which leagues they're in. So for French, it's just Liga 1. For Germany, it's just their top division. All these are fully manned by players, and we will go and see these teams obviously because we might try to go and get some cheap players. For the Dutch league, it's the top division. For Portugal, it's their top division, bit of a pattern forming here. And that should be it. Oh, Belgium, obviously up here, the Pro League only. So you then select all these leagues, make sure you do, then click whatever advanced options you want, and then click to start the game. So the next time you'll see me, we'll be choosing the manager, and we will start the season. Looks like we're starting the season in 23-24 actually. It doesn't really matter in this game because obviously with Football Manager 25 not happening, we have got updates now in Steam that make your FM24 into kind of like FM25. But because we're using this as a retro season, it doesn't really matter which season you start off with. So we'll start early 23-24, even though it's 1986-87, because you'll see that in players' histories that the years do jump. So for instance, John Aldridge is with Oxford, but it's now 2023, so his history biography will be 1985-86. Then the next season will be 2023-24. If you can just get around that, then you can play the game quite well. So next thing we'll see is when the game has loaded up. So the database has loaded and my manager profile has come in, and you'll get into the actual selection of which team you want to be. So as you can see here, this is the top division. You've got all the top sides who were in the 1986-87 database in those leagues, including Luton, the Man City. This is the Man City, of course, before the money came in. Sheffield Wednesday are down with us. Watford, QPR, of course. QPR with Jim Smith as the manager, and then you've got Oxford United, my team. So I'll go to the manager side now because I'm going to be Oxford's boss. And what I normally do is I'll normally concentrate on youth development. So I'll keep my stats as it is. My past playing experience, I might actually demote that down to semi-professional profile to give me a little bit of a leeway, because of course I could always get sacked in this if we do very, very badly. But I think the board of directors want us to stay in the league, in the top division, and then click to confirm, add manager, start playing. The game should then load up, and then you've got the very similar screens here. The strip is, sadly, we haven't got the strip, which is what Oxford used in 1985-86. Well, not here anyway. And then appoint Oxford manager. I'm a very young 21-year-old in this, which is quite funny. Click next. Give myself quite much chance as possible. Here's the history. We are at the Manor Ground. You can see the capacity is 9,650. That's around correct. I will up the transfer budget by another 10 million. I've got to give us a little bit of a chance. As I said in the intro, I'm going to pretend that Robert Maxwell gave me an extra 10 million. So I'm going to put that in as well. It hasn't got actually Maxwell here as a chairperson, it's just got someone else. So Maxwell doesn't actually feature as the chairperson, but you can see here the squad is some players that you've seen already, like John Aldridge, Jeremy Charles, Houghton, Hebbard, Brock. They're all here, and then we'll go through some of the other major players that Oxford had before we start the actual next season. And we'll also then start trying to find some bargain players, some players that went on to become superstars who are probably quite young in this game, so we might be able to get them quite cheaply, but we have to wait and see. The club wants us to become an established Premier League team, so obviously the database does not match that in 1985 and 1986. It was Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here it's got established Premier League team. So there is going to be a few little things that won't match up, but that will happen when you do retro databases. And basically they want us to survive. Schedule, yeah, press conference, yes. I will overwrite this and put my new classic in because I did do a classic just to see if everything was working. I'll click yes, and then this game will save. And then what we'll do in a minute is we'll start going through the players, the current Oxford United players, and then for next episode we will start searching in the preseason and getting a tactics in as well, and we'll see how we get on. So I've added about 10 million into the bank, so Oxford are a little bit more healthy. Um, I've done this to prevent us going bankrupt because we've got to have a little bit of a save. So we've got 19 million in the bank, which compared to other Division 1 sides isn't a lot. Our wage budget is 14 million, which is quite healthy. We've got the wage budget of 427,000. Our current spending is 352,000. So we can spend on some decent players if we want to. But the first thing we need to do, obviously, is to just go through all the beginning screens. So supporter profile, 36% core. So quite decent. 8,709 season ticket supporters, which is quite good. Remember, we got the smallest ground in the first division by a long way. Here's our expectations. I will accept the current vision. Oxford players now last contract, so obviously one of our main purposes is try to stop what happened in real life, is to try to keep John Aldridge with us, which I think is going to be pretty difficult because he will eventually would want to leave, as he eventually did. Our tactical direction, that's already been done. Preseason prep. The tactics we're going to use is the MadScientist's 4-4-2, which works most of the time. I'm not a very good tactician in Football Manager 24, hence why I have decided I needed a bit of help. Here is our selection rules. Obviously, we have to only have a squad of 25 players, and we've got 22 at the moment. Transfer window in progress, but let's go and look at all the competitions first. So again, we're in the Premier League. We can't have League One, Division One. So that's one exception to the rule, is that the Premier League is called Premier League in this, even though in this retro database we're actually playing in Division One. If we can get around that, we're fine. So we've got all the sides here in the Premier League, and then we've got all the sides in the Championship are here. But after the Championship, things get a little bit cloudy. What I mean by that, if you, for instance, collect Notts County and look at their players, these are all current players, but they will change as the game goes on. You can see what I mean by here is this is the senior team, and all these players are ghosted because this database do not go as far down as League One and League Two, which I can totally understand why MadScientist did not do that, because that would have been a lot of work. So obviously, as the seasons go on, some of these clubs will go into the top leagues, but they will be filled in by real players because the AI managers will start buying a lot of players. So you'll see a lot of these little clubs start to get a lot of players in, which some of them might be quite a bit of a surprise what players they will get in. But it's nice to see some old clubs here. You got Bury, who are burying this as Bury. If you know the history of Bury, you know they got bankrupted and they are coming back as Bury, which is great to see. So it's good to see them there. You got Chester FC, another club that became who got bankrupted and then became a Phoenix club. I think this is based on the Chester as we know now, because I think it's Chester City who were bankrupted. I tried to spot anyone. There's Newport County. There were another Phoenix club that came back. Let's go to League Two, which is Division 4. Aldershot Town. There we go. Aldershot are in here. And any other Scunthorpe? They are a non-league side now, I think. Is Scarborough here? I don't think Scarborough here. Scarborough were a side that went bankrupted. Have we got the conference? Yes, the National League is not featured in this. So any non-league sides we face in this database should be very easy to beat. Now let's go over to our current squad and see what our team looks like. Now all these players are all fully featured. All their skills are in there thanks to the, I think MadScientist looked at the original Championship Manager games and used the stats from there. So we can see that we've got 3 goalies, defence, midfield, quite strong here, but you can see how many wanted signs there are. So John Aldridge obviously is our star player, and he's actually wanted by Everton. Funny enough, Everton, not Liverpool in his save. So we'll click on John Aldridge. Here he is, and he's valued at 4.5 to 6 million. He's one of our better players. I'm going to change this selection because I have got a custom view, which I do prefer then. I think it's custom view, import view. I've got two actually. Let's do okay, and then what you do is you auto size all columns. That'll do. Yeah, I think that will do. It gives you all these stats a little bit better. Hopefully you can see the stats. So you can see who our most valuable player is. It's John Aldridge. Oh, actually, yeah, it's Ray Houghton. Ray Houghton's actually more valuable than John Aldridge. That's a surprise. So let's look at Ray Houghton. Obviously, you got him here. You can see he's very skillful. He's a great midfield general, very good player, 24 years old. You can see here by what I mean by the history. So the career stats jump from 85-86 to 23-24, but then it carries on at that year. And then you got, so in goal, we got Tony Parks on loan from Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, he did come on loan. And then we've got Alan Judge, who is our main goalie. He was formerly from Reading. Yeah, a bit of a controversial there. Steve Hardwick, a very good deputy, who's actually, yeah, these two could be good keepers. But I've got an idea of a keeper that I think we're going to try and get for a couple of million. And yeah, he's a really good one. David Lannon, very reliable defender. He stayed at Oxford for a few more seasons. Then if we click through all the other players, David Leeworthy, striker from Tottenham originally, just joined us really. Brian McDermott, another player from Arsenal, who recently joined us in 1984. Bobby McDonald, very reliable Scottish left back. Oops, wrong way. Tony Parks again. Steve Perryman, we featured Steve Perryman in introduction. He came to offer his experience, 34 years old, been at Tottenham for 17 years, and then came to Oxford for about 2 years before he actually went over to become Brentford's manager. He's 34 years old. In this save, I will probably get rid of him quite quickly to get rid of the wage packet. Les Phillips, another very good midfielder. Piers Rhodes Brown, very quick winger. He is now a media correspondent for Oxford United in real life. He came from Chelsea originally. Malcolm Shotton, the captain in this, I might keep him as captain. His influence should be quite high. Leadership 17, yeah, it's quite good. Non-leaguer, came from Nuneaton, originally Leicester youth player. 29 years old. He stayed with us for another 2 more years. Obviously, then he went over to Portsmouth. And then we've got Neil Slatter. Neil Slatter, Welsh international, well, soon to be Welsh international in real life. He only just recently joined Oxford. Very good left back, quite quick. John Twerrick, one of the tough midfielders. Can't think of Vinnie Jones. He's very similar. Nothing goes past him. Former Newcastle player. Been with Oxford since '83, so he's been up with Oxford when they've gone up the leagues with Jim Smith. And then you've got John Aldridge. Obviously, we know a lot about John Aldridge. He would become Oxford's most leading goal scorer. James Constable, who was an Oxford player in the 2010s and the 2000s, retired just 1 goal behind on John Aldridge, but John Aldridge is still our record goal scorer. And obviously, he went over to Liverpool in about another season. Gary Briggs, very, very dependable defender, 27 years old. Kevin Brock, former England under-21 international, 4 caps. He's a local lad as well, been at Oxford since 1979, and he then went over to become a player at Newcastle. Tommy Caton, Man City and Arsenal defender. Only recently joined us from Arsenal. He started off at Man City. Very good defender. He's worth quite a bit of money in this game as well. You'll see a lot of players worth a lot of money. Jeremy Charles, he retired quite young because he got injured in about 2 years' time from now. It's not worth too much in this game though. But Swansea player, Welsh international, 19 caps, 1 goal. He'll be used quite a few times. Then we got John Dwyer. John Dwyer hasn't really played that many games. 23 years old. I guess he's going to be a backup defender for us. And then Billy Hamilton, Northern Ireland international striker. He had an amazing partnership with John Aldridge over the next couple of years, scoring plenty of goals, scoring goals for Northern Ireland as well. Loads of experience. Yeah, he's a really good player. And then we've got Steve Hardwick, of course, that goalie we're on about. Trevor Hebbard, who the former Southampton player from 1978 to 82 that joined Oxford in 81-82 season. And he played in the Milk Cup final and scored that goal. Ray Houghton, just like John Aldridge, followed him to Liverpool a year later for 825,000. Former West Ham and Fulham player. Irish international at the time of here, he has got 2 caps and he's worth a lot of money. He is wanted by Liverpool, so just like real life, he actually went to Liverpool. It's going to be very difficult to try keep his players going to top sides because we are not the most biggest side in the competition in the Premier League. So we're just going to see some of these stats. Season preview, obviously we're not bottom. That's a strange one. We're actually 15th, which is quite unusual. So that's quite handy, I suppose. These are the top players. So look at all these names, classic names. We will look at some of these sides and players as the season goes on. Stadiums. Yeah, Manor Ground. We are the tiniest stadium by. Okay, Luton's is quite small. You notice some of these stadiums are not around anymore. There's Kenilworth Road. That is not around. That's not the real picture of Kenilworth Road, I don't think. No, these are not real pictures. The Dell, which is not around anymore. Leicester's Filbert Street, I don't think it's around anymore. Of course, Everton's just moved from Goodison Park at the time of this recording. And one side that we got to feature here is Wimbledon. This is Wimbledon before a lot of things changed. This is the Wimbledon before they became, well, they moved to Milton Keynes and became Milton Keynes Dons. And then AFC Wimbledon then formed, and AFC Wimbledon are kind of the most closest club to Wimbledon now. And if you just go to Wimbledon, for instance, you've got all the players here, including this is Dennis Wise, famous players. Vinnie Jones is not here, so we'll have to go and find somewhere some of these famous players are. So we'll go back to the inbox. We'll go to the tactics. Here's the tactics. I just let the no available coaches to us. Does that mean we've got no staff? Ah, yes, of course. We start off with no staff. Just me. So I have to start placing adverts. So get a new assistant manager in, get head youth development, get some coaches in. I have to put all these adverts in so we can start getting our coaches. We can have 10 coaches actually, so we can have a lot if we want to. So fitness coach. I don't think add set piece coach, maybe. Yeah. Oh, okay. I've asked the board for a set piece coach. We've got no director of football, so we need to get that. We need to get a chief scout. Do that. We need to get as many scouts as we can. So that's all. And then obviously we need a head physio. So that's one disadvantage in this, that you start with no staff whatsoever. So you have to start putting all this in. So now I've got to click the responsibilities. Now, one thing is I need to get this assistant manager quickly as possible. If not, I'll be in charge of the reserve side as well. And talking about reserve side, let's look at the reserve side. We've only got 5 players at the moment. So obviously I'm going to change this view because I need this view like my other view. Oops, I need to click that. Right click, that's it. Auto size all columns, there we go. We've got 5 youth players. I recognize all those names. We've got even Lee Nogan, 17 years old, wow. And then we've got no under 18 squad, so we've actually got a very, very small squad. Now, the good thing about this is I can start from scratch. I can start now looking for players that I want to join us. And the first player I'm going to try to find is a goalie who a lot of you guys should remember or should know, Peter Schmeichel, who obviously became the Man United goalie. But he's currently playing, he's only 22 years old and he's currently in Denmark. So I'm going to ask about his availability. We're very keen to sign him, and this gives me a clue. 17.23k, yeah, we can afford that. I believe somewhere between 200k and 2 million only. Whoa. I'm going to go, I'm going to make an offer for him straight away. Get Peter Schmeichel when he's only 20 years old before Man United on the other side. This is why I've upped the money a little bit. I'm going to offer them 1.5 million. Make offer. See what happens. And another player I want to bring, because I did a bit of research in this game before I started this save, it's David Platt. David Platt, who became a regular England international in the late 80s and England captain in the 90s. I'm going to see if he's available. 242.4 million wage. Yeah, quite high wage, but I think he's going to be worth it. So I'm going to make an offer for David Platt for, say, 1 million at the moment. Got to watch out the money, because I have to go and get quite a few free transfer players as well. And then we'll just quickly have a look before we end this episode, because I know this episode's going on for quite a while. We're going to be looking, here we go, Michel Platini, probably the best player in the game, one of the best players. And look at those stats. He's worth up to 214 million. Actually, their best player in the game will be Maradona. Maradona, who's featured a lot in my previous Championship Manager saves. He's in there twice, surprisingly. Why is he in there twice? There's a Brazilian called Diego Maradona, would you believe it? And there is Diego Maradona himself, worth, oh geez, not worth as much as Platini. He's 25 years old, but look at all the 20s. Wow, it's amazing. But that's it. So that's going to be the end of this episode. And next episode, we'll see how we're getting on with some of these other players and see if they're coming to join us. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this series to continue, please let me know. And hopefully episode 2 will follow this very soon. Bye bye for now.